Today, I shoot Justin in the face. Using only a prop gun, visual effects, and the grace of Cthulhu. Welcome to Film Riot, the show that takes mystery out of the effects and techniques. Going to some of your favorite hot films. I'm your host, Ryan Conley. Yeah, hey man.
No, just hey.
Oh, okay. As you probably guessed, we aren't looking at how we did this, but instead this, which is of course inspired by the Wolverine Healing Effect and is something that has been requested a lot, so. First up is how we shot it. Justin gets shot in the face and of course falls over, and we had some pads on the ground for Justin to fall on too. And the final rising up, we just had him drop backwards, then reversed and masked it in later. But for the healing, we got a clean plate of Justin laying on the ground. Then I created our own bullet wound asset by using nose and scar wax and some thick blood. We went into detail on how to do that in an older episode, which you can find a link for that below. But once we finished getting that on his forehead, I filmed a few seconds from the same spot as the clean version, so everything had the same angle and lighting. Now with all our assets, you all right?
Yeah, call the ambulance.
Now with all our assets gathered, we move into post, and as always, I'm using After Effects for this because I love it, but you could do this in any compositor. So first thing is to get a solid track. This effect will live or die on the track, so we have to get a rock solid one.
Oh
now,
man.
What?
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do.
What? Now, of course, this is a lockdown shot, but the subject is moving slightly, so we have to make sure there is no slipping in the end. Stark did this track in Mocha, where he made 2 tracks. The first one is in the area that the bullet is going to be placed. We only care about this general area because that's where the tracker will be focused. The next part is tricky, but not because it's actually difficult. We just have to track his right lens, but there's a reflection and his eye opens. Luckily, there's a rigid object, so we can track another area and have the same movement. We won't go into detail on how we track this way since we've shown that in other episodes. But now, once we have our track, we'll jump back into After Effects and create 2 null layers, one for each of the tracks that we just did in Mocha. Now we take the bullet hole asset we made and mask around the wound, then attach this layer to the forehead null layer. Of course, we're gonna feather our mask a bit to get a nice mix of his skin and the makeup. Then we're gonna pre-compose these layers together. This allows us to make changes to the separate comps individually. Now we can reposition the wound in the other comp if we don't like the location without affecting our main comp. And now, since we made the asset ourselves with the same position, lighting, and camera as our main footage, we don't really have anything extra to do to it to make it work. The only additional work Stark did to the cut was adding an out and inner glow just to blend the edges more of the skin and make it look more damaged. For the blood splatter on the glasses and forehead, Stark grabbed some blood splatter textures, which we posted some places that you can get that below. With the glasses, Stark went to the first frame of the sequence and drew a mask around the lens. Then he pre-composed this layer, leaving all attributes in the main comp. This allows you to move around the texture and make changes to it without affecting the mask. Then on that mask, add around 1 to 2% of feathering to give the illusion that the glasses bevel between the frame. Once the position of the texture is where you want it, attach this layer to the previously tracked eyeglass null layer we created, and again, turn on motion blur. To finish this up, lower the opacity a bit because it's on the glass and would be slightly transparent, and then darken the lightness with hue and saturation, and change the blending mode to multiply. For the splatter on his forehead, throw on another blood splatter, attach to the forehead track null, then change the blending mode to multiply. After that, we added a blur to soften the texture to match our shot more, then we lowered the opacity by around 10%. Now make sure this layer is below our main bullet hole layer, and then finally, just like the others, we will turn on motion blur and magic. Now that we have everything comped on, we take a break and then heal.
Looking to get a website? Smart. Using domain.com? Smarter. Because when you get a domain from domain.com, you're telling people, hey, I've got a vision for my brand or idea. Hear this. .com and .net are boss. How boss? Clouds know. They are the 2 domain extensions that will help build your brand and expand your presence online like a boss. Domain.com is reliable, affordable, and easy to use, and they're making it more affordable. By using the coupon code FilmRiot, you get 25% off domain names, web hosting, and email. Because everyone knows, when you think domain names, think domain.com.
logo.
Jumping back in with some healing, which is a lot more simple than you probably think. You start off by creating a solid directly above the wound layer we created. Then attach this solid to our forehead null from the previous step. This way it follows the head movement and locks everything together. Now add a mask to this solid layer that expands past the wound layer beneath it. The more random the mask shape, the more interesting the result will be. Next, we are going to keyframe the mask expansion over time to shrink until you can't see the solid, like so. Then we'll add a roughen edges effect to this layer to give the edges a non-uniform, noisy look that will give the illusion of regeneration. Your settings will differ, of course, so just toy around until you get something that works for you. Now all that's left to do is turn off the visibility of this layer, turn the track matte to alpha on the wound layer, and the wound layer has to be below the solid for this to be able to use the alpha of that solid layer. And just to make the composition more interesting and integrated, we added some blood smear to the carpet behind his head. It's not necessary, but it pushes the shot just a little bit further. Then in the end, as always, we add our final grade and we have... Again, this sort of effect was inspired by Wolverine, but you can also see a version of this idea in Terminator 2 with the T-1000. It's a different look with the metallic, but it would be the same concept. You would just replace the human wound with a more metallic or robot one. Both of these original effects are not done the way that we showed here. They're a lot more complicated, but this is a much simpler way to get a similar effect. So try it out, make some adjustments, make it your own, and improve on the idea. And once you do, send it our way. We'd love to see it. But that's it for today. We've pinned a comment below asking what effect you'd like to see us tackle, so throw that idea in there. And I'll see you guys next week when I chop a shotgun in half because the old dude called me a freak.